What if loneliness is not a curse, but a key? Not a void to be feared, but a sacred chamber where your soul whispers truths the world has forgotten? Since time immemorial, mystics have wandered into the wilderness. Sages have vanished into caves, and prophets have withdrawn from the crowd. Were they escaping, or were they answering a call that only silence could deliver? We've been taught to see loneliness as something broken, something lacking. But what if this very sensation, the aching quiet, the invisible weight pressing on your chest, was not the enemy, but the initiation? There is a secret woven through the teachings of the ancients, a wisdom so powerful it was hidden in parables, cloaked in metaphor, and buried beneath centuries of noise. Loneliness is not absence. It is presence. The presence of the self, unfiltered. The divine echo of who you truly are when all the masks fall away. In this video, we'll journey beyond the surface of isolation and uncover the esoteric meaning of loneliness through the lens of forgotten civilizations, spiritual alchemy, and soul initiation. You'll discover why this feeling, so misunderstood in the modern world, was revered by mystics, seekers, and awakened beings throughout history. We'll explore how ancient texts like the Emerald Tablet, the Bhagavad Gita, and the whispers of Hermetic thought reveal a mystical purpose behind solitude. Why do so many spiritual awakenings begin in the darkest hours of separation? What secret does the universe hide in the silence of your own company? By the end, loneliness will no longer feel like something to escape, but something to embrace. You'll learn to transmute it, like base metal into gold, into a force of radical self-discovery, inner clarity, and divine connection. The truth is this: you're never truly alone. But until you understand the hidden meaning of loneliness, you'll never truly know yourself. Let us begin. To understand the hidden nature of loneliness, we must turn not to psychology, but to ancient wisdom. In nearly every mystical tradition, the experience of aloneness is not seen as a punishment, but a rite of passage. The ancient Egyptians believed that the initiate could not enter higher states of consciousness until they had passed through the duat, the underworld of isolation, where all attachments were stripped away. Only then could the soul be reborn. In the mystery schools of Greece, neophytes underwent long periods of solitary contemplation before being permitted access to deeper teachings. Pythagoras, before he was recognized as a master, imposed a strict 5-year vow of silence on his disciples. Why? Because solitude, he knew, dissolves the ego's illusions and forces the inner voice to rise. The desert fathers of early Christianity left the cities and wandered into barren lands, not to escape humanity, but to confront their shadows. They understood that spiritual insight is often born in silence, in stillness, and in separation from the noise of the world. Likewise, in the East, Buddhist monks retreat into the forests and mountains, while yogis in India sit in caves for years, bathing in the sacred loneliness that precedes enlightenment. But this practice is even older than religion. On the stones of forgotten temples and buried scrolls, we find cryptic symbols and phrases pointing to a sacred solitude. The Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, implies a mirror not only between heaven and earth, but between the cosmos and the self. The universe, too, exists in sacred solitude, endless space between the stars, silence between pulses of time. In Gnostic texts, loneliness is portrayed as the moment the soul becomes aware of its exile, its separation from source. But this exile is not a punishment. It is the beginning of remembrance. Modern society, in its constant noise and stimulation, has pathologized loneliness. But the ancients saw it as a necessary crucible, a silence that reveals, a void that speaks, a pause that births revelation. Consider the archetype of the hermit, found in tarot and myth, a solitary figure, lantern in hand, not lost, but seeking. The hermit descends into isolation not to be consumed by it, but to emerge with light. Philosophers such as Rumi, Lao Tzu, and even Nietzsche hinted at this. Rumi wrote, "Don't run away from grief, O soul. Look for the remedy inside the pain, because the wound is the place where the light enters you." Loneliness, in its purest form, is that wound. But it is also the doorway, Nietzsche, often misunderstood, declared, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." What he meant was this: only in standing apart can the true self awaken. So why has this knowledge been hidden? Because the world fears what cannot be commodified. Loneliness cannot be sold, and sacred solitude cannot be controlled. A person who finds meaning in their aloneness becomes powerful, unshaken by distraction, immune to manipulation, guided by inner truth. Such people cannot be easily led, because they lead themselves. Over time, as empires rose and religions crystallized into institutions, the original initiatory power of loneliness was veiled, recast as sadness, as weakness. But beneath that veil, the original meaning waits to be rediscovered. And so, the question is not, why do I feel lonely? The question is, what is this loneliness trying to awaken within me? In the next section, we'll begin to answer that question, peeling back the layers to reveal what loneliness truly is, and why it may be the most sacred teacher you'll ever meet. So what is loneliness? Really? Strip away the cultural labels, the psychological diagnoses, and the emotional reactions, and you'll find something far more ancient and mysterious. Loneliness is not the absence of connection. It is the presence of awakening, a signal from your soul that something deeper is calling. Imagine this: you are a drop of water, once part of the vast ocean of divine consciousness. But to experience itself, that ocean must fragment, each drop sent into the world to journey back home. Loneliness is the echo of that separation. It's not dysfunction, it's the memory of unity. In mystical terms, loneliness is the veil, the thin, transparent fabric between the world of appearances and the world of truth. When we feel lonely, what we're truly experiencing is the soul reaching through that veil, reminding us that no outer connection can replace inner wholeness. You see, most people run from loneliness. They drown it in noise, distraction, and constant validation. But in doing so, they miss its sacred message: return inward. Come back to the temple within. Every sacred tradition has a word for this inward return. In Kabbalah, it is called teshuvah, returning to the divine. In Eastern thought, it is dhyana, deep meditative absorption into the true self. The Sufis call it fana, the dissolution of the ego into the oneness of God. And how does this journey begin? With stillness, with space, with the unsettling feeling that you are alone and must look within for answers. Loneliness is the first knock on the door of the inner world. But here's the paradox. The deeper you go into your solitude, the less alone you truly are. Why? Because the core of your being is not empty. It is filled with light, wisdom, and ancient memory. But you must pass through the illusion of isolation to reach it. Think of the moon in a night sky. It seems alone, cold, distant, and yet it reflects the light of something greater. Your loneliness is the moonlight, a reflection of your hidden radiance, waiting to be seen. The alchemists knew this. They encoded it in their process. Nigredo, the black phase of despair, isolation, and ego death. But they never saw it as the end. It was the beginning, the necessary step before transformation. And so we must ask, what if the pain of loneliness isn't something to fix, but something to follow? In part 2, we'll go deeper into the paradoxes, the myths, and the hidden layers of this experience. You'll learn why loneliness is not just a feeling, but a frequency, and how tuning into it can open the gateway to something far greater than connection, communion. To truly understand the hidden layers of loneliness, we must go deeper into its paradox. Loneliness, at its core, is a teacher of duality. It forces us to feel the separation so that we may seek unity. It exposes the illusion of the external world, where connection seems dependent on others, and instead redirects us to the inner sanctum, where true communion resides. But here is the mystery few dare to explore. Loneliness is not the opposite of connection. It is the doorway to it. Think of a seed buried in darkness. From the outside, it seems isolated, forgotten. Yet in that darkness, a miracle is occurring. The shell is cracking. Roots are forming. Life is preparing to rise. The same is true for the soul in solitude. Loneliness cracks the ego. It dissolves the outer shell of identity that has been shaped by society, trauma, and false belonging. It brings us back to the raw truth, before titles, before roles, before masks. This is why many ancient myths contain a motif of sacred isolation. The hero cast out, the mystic exiled, the chosen one abandoned. These are not tales of punishment. They are symbolic blueprints of awakening. Before one can merge with the divine or embody higher truth, one must first stand alone, completely. In Gnostic cosmology, the soul's descent into the material realm is marked by loneliness, a disconnection from the pleroma or fullness of divine being. But that separation is not permanent. It's an illusion meant to ignite longing, the spiritual hunger that guides us back to source. Loneliness, then, is not a flaw in the system. It is the system, a trigger, a sacred ache, an alchemical process in motion. Yet modern interpretations strip it of this meaning. We reduce it to social absence or emotional deficiency. We medicate it, numb it, escape it, but by doing so, we silence its message. Because loneliness is not just an emotion, it is a frequency, a spiritual resonance. And when you sit with it, not distract yourself, not run, but listen, you begin to hear the forgotten voice beneath it. The voice that says, I am still here. You are not lost. You are returning. This is the paradox. Only in complete aloneness can you encounter what is eternal. Mystics throughout history have described moments of profound spiritual contact during their most isolated hours. The desert hermits, the forest saints, the cave-dwelling sages. Why? Because when all outer noise dissolves, the divine has space to speak. And so we must reframe the myth. Loneliness is not proof that something is wrong. It is proof that something real is trying to emerge. In the next section, we'll explore how to work with this sacred energy, how to turn loneliness into a powerful force of transformation, spiritual depth, and personal rebirth. Now that we've uncovered the sacred symbolism of loneliness, the question becomes, how do we work with it? How do we stop resisting the ache and begin alchemizing it? The answer lies in ritual, reflection, and reorientation. Let's begin with the most ancient and powerful act, intentional solitude. This is not the same as avoidance or isolation. Intentional solitude is a conscious decision to step away from noise, not out of despair, but out of devotion. A commitment to listen. Each day, even for just 10 minutes, retreat into silence. Turn off all distractions. No music, no voices, just you and the space between thoughts. Breathe. Allow discomfort. Observe what arises without judgment. This simple practice opens the doorway to what mystics called the inner temple. Second, begin a dialogue with your loneliness. Literally, journal from its perspective. Ask it questions. What are you here to teach me? What have I been avoiding in myself? What am I ready to remember? You'll be surprised by what emerges. When loneliness is met with curiosity instead of fear, it transforms from a wound into a wellspring. Next, create a ritual of reconnection. Light a candle in a dark room. Sit before it and envision the flame as your soul. Not broken, not lacking, just silent, waiting. Whisper your name to it. Not the name the world knows you by, but the one that rises from your heart. The ancient name, the eternal self. Repeat it inwardly like a mantra. Let the light reflect back what you've forgotten. You are never truly alone. Another powerful practice is what ancient mystics called sacred witnessing. It's the art of being fully present with your experience without needing to change it. When waves of loneliness hit, don't label them. Don't rush to escape. Instead, witness them. Like clouds passing across a vast sky. You are not the cloud. You are the sky. Also, reconnect with the natural world. The earth knows the rhythms of sacred solitude. Watch a tree stand in stillness. Watch the moon rise without needing to be seen. In nature, aloneness is not sadness, it is sovereignty, presence, peace. And finally, reframe your inner dialogue. Stop asking, why am I alone? Start asking, What is solitude trying to awaken in me? The shift is subtle, but seismic. Loneliness, when seen through a sacred lens, becomes a teacher of unimaginable depth. It shows you where you are fragmented, yes, but only so you can remember how to become whole. And as you move through these practices, something begins to change. You'll find that the space that once felt cold now feels sacred. The silence that once screamed now sings. You are not empty. You are spacious. You are not lost. You are arriving. And perhaps most profoundly, you are not alone. You are all one. In the final section, we'll return full circle, tying these threads together with a final truth that may forever shift the way you see your aloneness. So now we return to the question we began with: what if loneliness is not a curse, but a key? What if it has never been a sign of weakness, but a secret doorway to your inner sanctum, your soul's cathedral? You've journeyed through ancient teachings, through symbols carved in stone and whispered through sacred texts. You've seen how mystics, prophets, and seekers of every age didn't run from loneliness. They entered it like a temple, not to escape the world, but to meet the divine, unfiltered, unmasked, unshaken. Loneliness, when fully embraced, reveals a holy paradox, that in the stillness you are not abandoned, you are invited, not into the crowd, but into communion, not into noise, but into knowing. And perhaps that's the greatest hidden truth of all. You were never meant to fill the void. You were meant to listen within it, because what you call loneliness might just be your higher self knocking, softly, patiently, asking if you're finally ready to come home. So the next time you feel alone, remember this: it is not your enemy, it is your initiation. Let it crack you open. Let it strip away what no longer serves. And let it lead you, not to more noise, but to the deeper voice that has waited quietly since the beginning. You are not here to fit in. You are here to awaken. If this journey stirred something in you, something ancient, something real, then this space is for you. Like, comment, share your own sacred solitude below. And if you're ready to explore deeper mysteries, subscribe. The path doesn't end here, it only begins. Because the loneliness you fear might just be the guide your soul has been waiting for.